Okay, I believe that our communication specialist is attending, and we'll get this going. Morning, Brianna. Brianna, are we ready to go?
Okay, his volume is off.
Go ahead, I'm recording locally as well.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We will convene the agenda for Tuesday, November 3rd, excuse me, and consider the matter that is scheduled for 10 o'clock. And that is case number, excuse me, 2020.0288.VA001. The applicants are Jason and Tara, is it Rudis?
Yes.
Okay, Rudis and Erica Isabel.
Yeah.
And the request this morning is for a variance to the required driveway width limitation to allow a driveway extended beyond that at a site located at 16519 92nd Avenue Southeast within the city of Yelm. My name is Steve Casso. I'm the City of Yelm Hearings Examiner. I am an attorney in the private practice of law with the firm of McCarthy and Casso that is located at 902 South 10th in Tacoma. So if anyone knows of a reason why I should not hear the matter, please indicate. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and proceed. The way we'll proceed then this morning is Ms. Merriman, are you going to present the staff report this morning?
Yes, I will.
Okay, then we'll hear a presentation of the city staff report by Tammy Merriman. Following that, we'll see if the city has anything further it wishes to present. And then following that, we will hear a testimony from the applicants and anyone that the applicants wish to call. Following that, after the applicant's presentation, I'll offer the city an opportunity to respond to any concerns or testimony that was raised. And then following conclusion of the hearing this morning, I will take the matter under advisement and will issue a written decision. And that decision will be transmitted to the city and also to the applicants at the address of the 92nd Avenue address. And if you need a decision or want a decision mailed elsewhere, just let the city know prior to the conclusion of the hearing, and we will make sure to transmit a decision there as well. When it is your turn to testify, please state your name and address and spell your last name so that we have it correct for the record. And before you testify, I will swear you in as a witness, as we're required to take all testimony under oath. And so when I just ask you if if you're going to tell the truth, basically just answer by stating I do. So Ms. Merriman, do you want to raise your right hand for me, please? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you shall give in the case now hearing shall be the truth? Just answer by stating I do. Thank you. Go ahead and proceed.
All right, thank you. Good morning, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for attending. As the hearing examiner stated, we have before us a variance request to extend a driveway larger than the Yelm Municipal Code allows. But first, before I get into the staff report, I want to put on the record that the notice of application that we received was mailed to state and local agencies and property owners within 300 feet on October 1st, as well as published in the Nisqually Valley News on October 8th. The notice of the time and place of this hearing was mailed to property owners within 300 feet of the site, mailed to the recipients of the notice of application, and folks that commented on the application. And notice of the public hearing was also published in the newspaper on October 22nd, 2020. The city did receive comments from 2 property owners within the subdivision, as well as comments from the homeowners association. Those were attached as exhibits on the staff report, and I am going to trust that everyone had received their copies of the staff report that I mailed out. So with that, in looking at the application materials, this project is exempt from the environmental SEPA review. The property is located at 16519 92nd Avenue in Yelm. It's identified by the assessor's tax parcel number as 635400000400, and it's located within the Mountain Sunrise subdivision, which is zoned low density residential R4. This subdivision was approved in October of 2005, and the building permit for this home was also issued in November of 2005. To the staff report is the actual site plan that was approved with this building permit in 2005. And that site plan shows that it meets the current code standards, or the code standards at the time that the building permit was applied for. Also attached to the staff report is a photo. It's marked as Exhibit C, and it shows the property in its state in 2012 that showed the driveway and the planter strip, street trees, and so forth. The applicant added some paved parking in front of their garage and in front of their home of approximately 28 feet in addition to their 18-foot driveway. The expansion was completed without review or approval from the city of Yelm. The city did contact the applicant to let them know that it was wider than the allowed driveway width in the Yelm Municipal Code. And they stated to us that there was a need for this, a medical need to make the driveway wider. So we discussed with them the process of asking for a variance to allow the driveway to be wider than what the code requires. So the applicant did submit their application materials. They included a letter from their doctor stating that there was a medical need for this wider driveway. The request was based on the statement that a reasonable accommodations be provided for a family member in the home due to a disability. When looking up the definition for a reasonable accommodation, I found a definition within the Fair Housing Act that states that it's a reasonable accommodation is a change or an exception to a rule or policy for a person with a disability to have equal opportunity to use their dwelling. That municipalities or anyone, it's unlawful to refuse to make a reasonable accommodation. But then also it goes on further to state that to show that a requested accommodation may be necessary, there must be an identifiable relationship or nexus with this reasonable request. The Yelm Municipal Code does allow for a variance when there are certain circumstances within a property or a situation where the strict adherence to the code does not provide that property owner the right to enjoy the property. And it lists the criteria, 5 different criteria that the applicant should provide information that this strict interpretation would deprive the applicant the rights enjoyed by other properties, that there's special circumstances and consideration for this property, that the hardship was not presented or specifically related to the property, that granting the variance will not be materially detrimental to the public welfare, and that it would not permit a use that is prohibited by the code. The city of Yelm requires a minimum of 2 parking stalls for each residential unit within the city, and that the residential driveway widths not exceed 24 feet. The maximum driveway widths are incorporated into our code for a couple different reasons. First, when planning a subdivision development, the developer needs to know the approximate amount of impervious surface that is going to be within the development, And that's how they plan the stormwater treatment for the full development. This includes driveways, all the streets, and everything but the rooftops within the households. Also in the design standards are the requirement for planter strips within the public right-of-way, and those planter strips include street trees throughout the development. This provides not only aesthetic value, but it also provides green space within a residential subdivision. In looking at their request, their driveway is actually a little bit smaller than most driveways in the area. And then looking at our code, a standard parking stall is 9 feet wide by 20 feet deep. And a stall that meets ADA accessibility requirements is also 9 by 20, but it also is required to have a landing beside the vehicle that is at least 5 feet wide and 20 feet long. The Mountain Sunrise subdivision provides on-street parking through local access residential streets. In the Mountain Sunrise subdivision, it was a modified street standard that allowed narrower streets and parking on one side or the other varied throughout the development. In this instance, the on-street parking happens to be in front of this home. The right-of-way, as I stated a little bit earlier, on both sides of the street has a 5-foot planter strip that is there to provide green space and to provide for street trees. It's part of our urban forestry program. And then behind the city right-of-way, there's also a 10-foot utility easement. And within this easement, there's telephone lines, power lines, natural gas, video, cable. So there's many utilities within that 10-foot utility easement. When creating driveways over this utility easement, it is standard practice that these utilities be sleeved so that if there's any maintenance required to these utilities, that the companies can access it through this sleeve and not have to tear up driveways. When looking at the criteria for a variance, it's required that we provide findings and analysis for each variance criteria. And I did try to list those out. I'm not going to read it word for word, but in regards to the literal interpretation and application of this, does it deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by others? And we believe that the applicant has provided sufficient information and documentation that there is a special requirement needed for this site. And it would be necessary to preserve for the preservation and enjoyment of the property rights of this property. The next required finding is that is it specifically related to the property due to unique size, shape, or any other natural features. In this case, I couldn't really come up with a good finding other than the special need that is required for the family member here. Granting the variance be materially detrimental to the public welfare or injurious. And while this driveway being wider probably is not going to make the stormwater facilities fail, it does, however, remove the green space and the street tree that, if you saw in Exhibit C, was there and was actually very healthy in 2012. And then the last finding was, will the variance permit a use that was prohibited by the Unified Development Code? And this would not be the case. Permitting a wider driveway is not a prohibited use. So in conclusion, as I was going through this, I really struggled on how to find a way to make the variance criteria meet this reasonable need request. And in some of my internet research regarding zoning and variances, I found a really unique statement that said that sometimes when the request is for a medical need or a person with a disability, that the specific variance criteria doesn't fall neatly into what's needed for the specific situation. And that additional analysis could be included on whether the modification is reasonably necessary to accommodate the disability, and whether the modification would fundamentally or unreasonably alter the nature of the code requirement. In looking at this, looking at our standard parking stalls and so forth, it really came to mind that there is special circumstances on this. There is a need for this family member, and that they should be allowed to have the parking that's needed for everyone there. In looking at that, because a single family home generally has 2 parking stalls, and in this case, there's a joint family, then 3 parking stalls would absolutely be adequate or needed for this family. So at standard parking stalls of 9 by 20, that would mean that 27 feet of driveway would be needed just to accommodate the vehicles. And that's wider than our standard 24 feet. Also, because of the need of the family member with the disability, they need to be able to park that car off the street and have space for that family member to exit the car safely. And in looking at that, allowing for the parking stall that meets the American with Disabilities Act, providing the 5-foot landing at the 20-foot length of the driveway would be adequate or would be reasonable to request. In looking at the photos of how the driveway was done, the fact that the planter strip, the full planter strip and street tree has been covered with pavement, the utility easement was covered with pavement, and we're not sure if any of the utilities were sleeved as was standard. It would be the city's recommendation to allow a modified version of their request to provide for the 3 parking stalls and the landing pad of 5 by 20 feet adjacent to one of the stalls for the family member to exit safely, but to not allow the full 46-foot driveway. And that would also include restoring the 10-foot utility easement and the 5-foot planter strip with the street tree. And that's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So are you, just so I understand what the, what the city's recommendation is here, it says that you are recommending a driveway width of 27 feet with a 5-foot wide by 20-foot accessible landing. And so my question is, okay, does that 27 feet include the 5 feet by 20 accessible landing, or is that in addition to the 27 feet that would increase it to 32 feet?
The landing would be in addition to the 3 full-size parking stalls.
Okay, so then you would, what your recommendation then would be is a 32-foot wide driveway.
The intent of this was that the driveway approach is 27 feet, and then where it reaches behind the utility easement to provide that 5 by 20 accessible landing, not to have the entire driveway from the street be 32 feet.
Okay, so then the 27-foot approach, that would be from the street to behind, I guess, the utility easement, and then would expand then to the 32-foot width.
Correct.
And then in addition to that, then now where is the planter strip? Is that between the utility easement and the driveway, expanded driveway, or is that between the street and the utility easement?
It is between the street and the utility easement. The public right-of-way extends 5 feet from the back of curb, and that is the planter strip that includes street trees.
Okay, so then they would need to replace the, well, they wouldn't really, I guess they would need to replace the landscaping between the 27 and the 46-foot width. And, and then would also need to, what would they need to do to the utility easement?
That would be also removing the pavement and restoring the grass that was there.
Okay, but you said something about a sleeve.
It's standard construction practice when you have driveway approaches over the utility easement to sleeve the utilities, and that, forgive me if I'm not using the right technical term, but that would be a pipe that the utilities would go through so that if they need to maintain or replace them, that they can go from the grass area under the concrete and maneuver the utilities through that sleeved pipe.
But are you suggesting then that they would need to go down and dig up the utility lines and put in a sleeve?
I don't think that that would be necessary if they're going to restore the utility easement back to its original state.
Okay. Okay. Final question I have, can you see me on the screen?
No.
No, I can only see you.
Oh, okay. Well, there's a button here I didn't want to push while you were talking. It says start video. And so I'm going to push it right now and see what happens. There.
There you are.
Oh, okay. There I am. Okay. I'm sorry about that.
Nice to
like I
see
say,
you.
I'm technologically challenged, but at any rate, okay, then who would like to speak from the for the applicant first?
I'm Tara.
Okay, you want to raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you shall give in the case now in hearing shall be the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. And just state your name for me, please, and then go ahead and proceed.
Tara Rudis.
Okay. And is that your correct address, at the 92nd Avenue Southeast?
Yes, it is.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. All right, fine. Go ahead and proceed.
So my interpretation of this is stating that the reason we made this extension of our driveway, as Tammy had mentioned, was because we have a my nephew is disabled and needed more room to exit the vehicle and to be able to have his meltdowns that he has off the street. So am I understanding that it's your recommendation is that to make it 3-car driveway? And then I don't understand about the 5 by 20 additional landing. Would that be straight across? Is it at an angle? The reason we have it straight across like that is because we wanted to give him enough area to where if he runs and has his meltdowns, that he won't be in the grass because he's allergic to grass, and then he wouldn't be on the street as well. So I'm not understanding if you're allowing us to keep that. Would it be straight across to where he wouldn't be in any grass area, or will it be at an angle?
Can you answer that question, Ms. Merriman?
Hopefully I'm understanding your question correctly. I perceive this to be directly adjacent to the actual vehicle parking area. So the parking area would be extended that additional 5 feet. However, it would not extend from the garage or your fence all the way back out to the street. It would only go 20 feet back and end at the utility easement.
So, but I mean, she's asking, I think, if that it would be in an angle, but you're saying it would be straight into the just kind of a perpendicular, parallel to the existing parking.
I would say that really that landing should be made in such a way that is most beneficial to the family member. However, what we're stating is the driveway and approach itself be 27 feet wide, and then that 5 by 20 pad in whichever configuration works the best would be behind that utility easement and behind the public right of way. So really 15 feet back from the back of curb would be the start of how you need that landing to be. It would not be from the street.
Can I talk?
Okay, I need you to raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you shall give in the case now in hearing shall be the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and then I need you to state your name for me,
My
please.
name is Erica Isabel, the mother of the child with the disability.
Okay, do you live at the same address there on the night?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead then, please.
So what they're asking is what we have right now. They're trying to get rid of the concrete, or what are they basically asking?
Modifying it.
To modify it. So I don't know, the road is so close, the driveway is so close to like the highway. I don't know if I'm saying all the words right. I'm a little nervous talking. And my son, when it was on the road, the car, he would run out, and it's a big safety issue and danger for him because it's so close to the highway. And so when we got the concrete, I don't know why I'm so nervous, I can't speak. When we got the concrete, it was a big help for him. So he stopped going onto the road so much, like near the highway. Now he just stays on the concrete in that area where my car is parked, and he has his tantrum there. So I don't know, I just wanted to give my input.
So am I understanding that your recommendation is to allow that concrete just to make sure that there's, where'd you go? Oh, there you are. Just to allow place for the utilities easement, is that correct?
It's the city's recommendation that the utility easement and the planter strip be restored to its original state, and that the driveway be provided at a wider width of 27 feet, and then an additional landing that would be needed for the family member to be able to exit the vehicle.
I don't. No, they're recommending that they allow it, but not where it is now. That it would have to, the planter strip would have to be replaced.
I tell you, Ms. Merriman, could you, would it be possible for you to just sketch, make a little sketch of what your proposal is, and then hold it up to the screen, or so we could look at it?
Okay.
I understand. I don't know the complete specifications that you're saying, width-wise and, down to the feet, but I kind of understand what you're saying in regards to that.
Well, while she's doing that, do you have any response you'd like to make to the city's suggestion or recommendation? Do you have anything to say specifically about that?
Well, I do have a recommendation that we leave the width of the driveway just because it gives him more of an area. If he does have when he has his tantrums, it gives him a wider space in our area, so he's not in the grass at all. That's why we went all the way to the end of our property, because it gave him a wider area. And since he is safer area and he is allergic to the grass, so we try to keep him as close to away from that as possible.
Ms. Merriman, is there an alternative to grass that the applicants could place alongside of the pad that you're recommending, such as maybe gravel or something else that would not be a concrete, driveway, but would be some other material that they could use?
Yes, the city would be open to looking at other material. I would say that I understand that gravel could be an option, but I would like to just confirm that gravel parking is generally not allowed within the city. If they need to look at other landscaping measures, such as, a landscape area with gravel or bark or some other type of ground cover, certainly would be able to be open to something different than the grass there. I do have a drawing. It's very poor, but I would be happy to share
Okay.
what I thought my
All right.
was.
Well,
And
we
I'm
won't-
gonna hold this up.
Okay, well, it's definitely not a Picasso, but
Well, thanks. So I'm gonna see if I can do this. This is the house. What we're considering, and the minimum driveway approach is 20 feet. So from the back of the garage would be 20 feet out. Then you have your 10-foot utility easement, and then you have a 5-foot planter strip, and here would be the street. So what we'd be looking at is a 27-foot driveway in width, which is 3 standard parking stalls at 9 by 20. And then this pad to the side, which allows the family member to depart the vehicle and land onto a pad such as you see in ADA accessible stalls in any parking area, that there's that 5 by 20 foot paved area landing that the family member can get out of the car safely and have additional room. But this landing area would not extend through the utility easement and planter strip and out to the street. So it wouldn't be a 32-foot wide driveway, it'd be a 27-foot wide driveway, and then widen out to provide access for the family member. Is that?
So it would be the 27-foot driveway, and in between, and then a pad, and at the bottom, it would have the 5-foot planter strip, correct?
Well, there's a 10-foot utility easement behind your
Okay.
20-foot, and then the 5-foot planter strip. So this is actually about 15 feet from the utility easement out to the street, the curb.
And so but on the side of the pad, will it go all the way to the end of our property, or will we have to put a strip there as well?
Well, I'm not a medical expert, so for me to make the determination of what is truly needed for the family member is difficult for me to say. I'm going by standards that are in the Yelm Municipal Code, state required standards for Americans with Disabilities Act, and those are the guidelines that I followed. This is why we have this opportunity to speak, so that we can share and determine what is needed for this family member to make sure that he remains safe.
I would just like to say that I understand the utilities easement and the planter strip. I would like to ask if we could leave the width of it to the end of the property, just because that gives him more area in case he has his fits, to where he's safer, where he's not on closer to the running onto the street or onto other people's
He
properties.
hits my head and he like springs out, and it's very hard. Like I have to be there with him on the side, and if it's too small and of an area, we can't, like, I can't control him sometimes when it's like a little space and he's like lying on the ground hitting his head. I have to be there to go and pick him up and try to help him and try to comfort him. It's not easy.
But what now what you're asking here is that that you be allowed to extend the concrete pad all the way to the edge of the street. Is that what I'm hearing?
To the edge, yes, to the edge of the property where it is right now. So it gives us a bigger area. He's a big boy. He's 17 and he's tall and, and he's strong. And so it gives her more of an area to be able to control him if he runs or lays on the ground. And, we're just trying to make it easier for her. And so he's able to be safe as well.
Okay, I understand what you're asking then. It's just to extend the pad to the street. And then you'd be asking, then you'd work with the city if you wanted to extend, to replace the concrete, along the frontage. I mean, let's see, how am I going to ask this? But, at the end of the pad, then you'd like to be able to work with the city to determine some sort of material or, whether it be astroturf or bark, beauty bark or something of that nature, which would replace the concrete, but it would also give an opportunity there for him to run not through the grass or shrubs.
Yeah.
Correct.
I
Yeah.
heard that we had bark before and he would run through it.
Bark, yeah,
And
but the
it
astroturf
really
thing, well, something we
him.
could,
Okay,
the bark bugged him.
yes, it
Oh.
stuck in his feet and his sock. We had this, we've been here for 2 years. And we had it in our apartment in Vegas. So they were reconstruction in our area. And so that was a big problem for him then. But then they ended up getting concrete and it was a lot better for him.
okay, all right. Well, I think what I'm thinking here is that maybe some sort of a condition, assuming, I'm going to have to think about this, but assuming that, that we, restrict the concrete, then what I might do is just put a condition in there that would allow the applicants and the city times to work out a solution regarding an alternate material to concrete. And then if if you can't reach a decision, it could be returned to me in writing for decision. Does that seem acceptable to everyone?
Yeah.
And I understand the city's position too, Ms. Merriman, that you'd like to have the concrete, no concrete between the street and the pad.
I understand what she's saying about between the street and the pad, but I am requesting if you could leave the pad, the extension that it already is for his well-being.
It's very helpful for him.
Yeah.
He's not had a problem since it's been like that.
Yeah, I understand. Now, Ms. Merriman, I know that we've had some letters from the homeowners association, and they have restrictive covenants, but we don't, the city doesn't have any enforcement authority or any other thing as far as the CCRs. Is that correct?
That is correct. We don't participate or enforce the CCNRs. We follow the Yale Municipal Code.
And so the CCR, that's something that the applicants would need to work with the homeowners association on as far as that goes. Okay, do you understand what I'm saying, Ms.
do.
Rudis, that?
I do, and when I spoke to VIS, they said they were waiting on the hearing to see what they were going to move forward from there.
Okay, all right. Ms. Merriman, does the city have anything further it wishes to present this morning?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I will, or Ms. Rudis and
Mr. Examiner?
Ms. Isabel. Yeah. Oh, Mr.
I'm
Beck.
sorry.
Yeah.
We do have one member in the lobby who may wish to give testimony if we want to check real quick.
Okay, go ahead and check.
Ms. Wadley, did you want to testify at the hearing today?
I do have a couple things I'd like to say.
Okay, I need you to, could you raise your right hand for me, please?
Yes.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you should give in the case now in hearing should be the truth? And please answer by stating I do.
I do.
Thank you. And I need you to, I've got your name here on the screen, so if you could give me your address, please.
Sure. And my name, I accidentally put 2 H's at the end when I was typing, and there is only one. My address is 16616 Rainier View Drive, Southeast in Yelm, Washington.
Okay. Go ahead.
And I am the president of the Homeowners Association.
Mhm.
And, we have made attempts when we get ACC requests. We've been trying to reach out to the city more and check with them to make sure that the things that we are approving are also in compliance with city codes, so that we're not, enticing people to make changes that they're going to have to undo after the fact, because that's a pain for everyone. And so, when we set a lot of our ACC guidelines in our CCNRs, they are intentionally to be in compliance with the city in which we live. And so, we've had other requests from homeowners to expand driveways, to remove street trees, things like that. And we have denied those because those are things that were required by the city for us. A lot of the things in our CCNRs were requirements of the city when the development was approved. And so, we reviewed the recommendations that the city had put forward on this. And I think that the board was in agreement that all of those would meet with the concerns that we had, restoring that planter strip, restoring the street tree. Our issue isn't necessarily that they wanted to expand the driveway. We've approved other requests to expand driveways as long as they were within that, the 24-foot approach, et cetera, to comply with the city. And so I think the accommodation being recommended to give them that 27-foot width, to have 3 stalls, and to add the additional pad, I think is a really good recommendation on the part of the city that respects both the community and the needs of the homeowner. I also understand that their request to extend the pad, from what I'm understanding, there's no issue with restoring that green space between the pad and the street. It's the side that they're discussing, the side between them and the neighboring homeowner. They'd like to be able to keep that the full width of the property line. And I don't think that we would have a big objection to that either. The only question I would have on that is if a survey was conducted to determine what that property line was at the time that they installed that driveway. Because part of the reason there's that 5-foot where you don't put anything along the property line is because you don't want to infringe on your neighbor's property inadvertently. And so as long as there's no issue there with the property line being compromised, I don't think we'd have any opposition to that width being kept, and just the open space in front of the driveway pad being reopened.
Okay, let me just ask a couple of questions here because, like I say, they're going to have to work with you as well as the city. And I guess the 2 questions I would have is, number one, do you have what would your position be? I know you can't speak for the homeowners association, but bind them for something. But what would your position be on the issue regarding extending the concrete from the 5-foot wide pad to the street over the utility easement and the planter strip?
Well, I think we would prefer it be extended horizontally to the property line as it is at the moment, rather than being extended vertically out to the street. Because that's where that street tree and grass space is contiguous throughout the neighborhood, of course, with the exception of where driveways cross it. But and that's what I understood Miss Rudis to be saying, is that she didn't have an issue with extending that open space back open, but they wanted to extend the pad out to the property line, meaning the side property line with the neighbor.
No. We're talking about as the way I understood it, and maybe I heard it wrong, but what we're talking about is extending the pad. The city is recommending that the pad, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, but the city is recommending extension of the pad only to the, or limiting it only to the applicant's property and not extending it to the street across the utility easement and planting strip. They would eliminate the concrete pad from the edge of that pad. They would eliminate the concrete all the way over beyond that, beyond the edge of the pad. And that's what we were talking about, is the possibility of using some additional, something besides concrete, that would allow Ms. Isabel's nephew or son there to run, such as beauty bark or some other material that they would actually, negotiate with the city, but maybe with the homeowner should be involved in that too. But at any rate, if I'm saying something wrong, let me know. But that's what my understanding of the.
No, I'm wanting to keep the pad and the width all the way that it is now.
Yeah.
Oh, all the way over to the 46 feet?
Correct.
The issue that they're having is because they can't have the tree.
In the front.
And is that a bigger issue than my son having a safety and a danger of the property for having a tree there? That's a bigger need for my son to be safe. It's a concern, not for a tree to look nice.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, I misunderstood it because we were talking about an alternate material, and that was
yeah, but I had that before and it just didn't work. And the concrete seemed to be working and he's happy.
Okay, all right. So your request then would be to keep the whole 46
Yes.
feet, right? In other words, keep everything the way it is.
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. Then now I understand then that's what your position would be. Okay. All right. Well, I'm okay then. Then Ms. Wadley, do you have anything further you want to add?
Nope, I think that's it. We're in agreement with the recommendations of the city.
Okay. Okay. Ms. Merriman, do you have anything further?
No, I would only ask, would it be helpful to share the aerial photo on this, or the photo of the home on the screen with the driveway as exists today, and kind of discuss really looking at what is there and what the city was requesting, or do you think that's necessary?
Well, why don't you go ahead and do it? I mean, I misunderstood before, so maybe go ahead and put it up there.
Okay. So can you see
Yes.
the photo on the screen?
Yes.
So this is the driveway as it exists today. We're going to assume that the edge of pavement follows their property line between the two homes.
Yes.
And this is right here, this area behind the vehicles is the 5-foot planter strip and the 10-foot utility easement. So what the city's proposal is to make the driveway from where it starts here, 27 feet in width, to allow for 3 vehicles. And then the area here restored back to the utility easement and planter strip with a street tree, which we saw in the photo from 2012. Up here, 20 feet where the vehicles are parked, this is where I'm not the medical expert and wouldn't say necessarily that the standard ADA landing pad is adequate. If we look at something a little bit larger here so that the family member could get out of the car, it's more right here, the area of utility easement and planter strip, and the width of the driveway approach on the entire street is where the city would like to have that restored back.
Are you recommending then retention of the entire pad the way it is now, with except for the planter strip and utility easement being restored?
If that's if we all feel in agreement that that's what's needed for the family member, then I do believe that we could, as you suggested, to work with them to make sure that there's adequate room beside the vehicle when the family member exits the car. If we can find the nexus and the reasonable, need for this accommodation, then I believe that if that nexus is there, then that should be provided. However, I don't believe that we should, I do believe that we should restore the utility easement in the planter strip back.
Okay, across up until the 20, up to the 27-foot width.
Correct.
Okay, well, why don't, okay. I think what you think it would be better to issue a decision now or leave the record open for you to work with the neighbors and the homeowners, or work with the applicants and the homeowners association to reach some sort of accommodation there?
I believe that the neighbors across the street, the ones that are actually like having to deal with where we're living, if you look on their comments, they give pretty good reviews, and they know my son because we go to everyone's house and we tell them, if my son, he likes to wander off over there, can you please send him back if I happen to be in the shower, and there's comments that they think it's a very good idea, and it's they see him less going onto the street when the concrete is up there and running onto their area, because it's like off the road and it's not so close to their side where he's like darting across to their side. My car is the black car. That's where I park. So my son would be getting out of the car, and he has enough space in the front and the back. And like I said, I have no problem working with the state on things, but we've tried that before in the past, and it just wasn't working for us. The concrete it helped him enjoy and not having to get stuff stuck in his sock, or like if he falls down, like the sticks would go and poke him and he gets splinters.
Trip over the,
It's just, this is a better, I think, safer way that he could exit the car in front and back and on the side without any kind of like splinters, damages, tripping.
What would you like to do, Ms. Merriman, as far as decision or leaving the record open?
Mr. Examiner, I think I would like to leave that up to you. If we're at an impasse, then the city has stated its desire and stance for this situation, and the property owner is stating that it is not enough. So I believe that at this point we're at an impasse, and I don't know that further negotiations is going to bring us to a conclusion.
Okay. Okay. Well, I will go ahead and take the matter under advisement. Ms. Bell and Ms. Rudis, you've both made a very compelling argument, and I will take that into consideration, and then we'll proceed to issue a written decision.
Okay.
And Ms. Wadley, you need to, if you could, make sure that the city has your address there, so that you'll get a copy of the decision when it's rendered. So thank you all for coming and participating this morning, and